There's a wave of open source tools right now that do something that still sounds made up. An AI agent that writes a trading strategy, tests it against years of real market data, reads its own score, and then rewrites its own code to do better. Over and over, generation after generation. Some of them advertise 30 times returns. So I ran one. Real data, on nothing but a Claude subscription, no API bill. And I sat and watched it evolve for 10 generations. What it built genuinely surprised me. It wrote things I would not have written, and then one number, right at the end, changed how I read the entire run. Let me show you the whole thing. So, what these things actually do is simpler than it sounds. You hand the agent a starting strategy, it reads the code and writes an improved version, then a backtest scores it. And backtest just means replaying that strategy across years of past prices to see what it would have done. The score goes straight back to the model, which mutates the code again. Keep the winners, breed the next generation. Write, score, feedback, repeat. It's evolution with a language model as the thing doing the mutating. The one I used is called ShinkaEvolve from Sakana AI, a Tokyo lab whose whole approach is borrowed from nature. Generate a lot of variants, keep what survives, and it runs inside Claude Code, so every one of those rewrites was just my subscription, not a metered API. Now, before I started, I had one choice to make, and it turned out to be the whole experiment. The framework itself is about 100 lines of loop. You could write it in an afternoon. What actually decides your result is the scoreboard, because whatever you measure is the thing it will optimize. So I fixed everything else and changed only that. One dataset, 30 of the most liquid coins, daily prices, 3+ years, price and volume only, and two scoreboards. A naive one, score the strategy on the same data it learned from, with no trading fees. That's an open book exam with the answer key sitting on the desk. And an honest one, train on the older years, then grade it only on recent data it has never seen, with real fees taken out. A closed book exam, same agent, same seed, same coins, two judges. This is what I handed it to start from, on purpose. The most famous trend rule there is the golden cross: buy when the average price of the last 50 days crosses above the average of the last 200, plus a momentum check. Straight textbook numbers, and deliberately not tuned. Because if I hand optimize the seed, then I'm the one doing the work. Give it something plain and watch what it does with it. And it works. Watch the naive scoreboard climb. From that plain golden cross in about 10 generations, the agent rewrote it into a real quant system. It reads the trend across several timescales at once, sizes positions smaller when the market turns wild, and breaks itself automatically when losses stack up. All written by the model, none of it by me, and its score went from about zero point 0.2 to zero point 0.9. That score is the Sharpe ratio, how much return you earn for the amount of risk you took to get it. Zero point 0.2 is roughly a coin flip. Zero point 0.9 is the neighborhood where a fund would take your call. This part genuinely impressed me. The machine reading its own code, finding what's weak, fixing it. And it's not just typing code. I ran a second, smarter model as an orchestrator. Its job is to step back every few rounds, read the whole search, and write notes to steer it. So you get the AI critiquing its own work in plain English. On one overbuilt version, it wrote, over-engineered relative to results, a signal that is confidently wrong on the validation period. And about its own best strategy, very conservatively sized, protects capital but caps upside. Remember that second line. The agent had already spotted something about its own champion that I hadn't. Because when a run hands you a great-looking score, there's one thing you should always do next. Ask what that number is made of. So I opened it up, and underneath that 0.9 point 0.9 over 4 years, the strategy made about 6% total, which shows you exactly what it solved for. Sharpe is a ratio, return divided by risk. There are two ways to push a ratio up: earn more or risk less. The agent found the second one. It built something that trades small, sits in cash a lot of the time, and almost never loses. Not more return, less risk. It optimized precisely what I asked it to. And to be fair to it, that is not a dumb answer. It's what a professional desk actually wants, because a clean ratio is the thing you can lever. If a strategy really earns that much per unit of risk, you trade it at 3 or 5 times the size, and the returns scale up with it. High Sharpe on low exposure isn't a weak strategy. It's a chassis you can put a bigger engine in. That's why funds optimize ratios instead of returns. But it comes with one condition, and it's the condition this whole video turns on. Leverage multiplies whatever the ratio really is. So the ratio has to hold up outside the data it was built on. And if what you want is raw profit, then ask for that. Point the scoreboard at how much money it actually made, and it will go build you something that takes risk. It gives you what you measure. So does the ratio hold up? Here's the step every one of these runs needs, and most demos skip. A number an optimizer hands you isn't a result yet, it's a hypothesis. Any search, human or machine, will fit the data you give it. So you take the closed book exam, the sealed slice of history the agent never got to see. Champion Naive, graded open book on its own training data, scored zero point 0.9. Exact same code, closed book with real fees, about zero point 0.2. The seed, for reference, loses money out there. So most of that beautiful climb was fit, not edge. And that isn't the run failing. That's the check doing exactly its job, and it cost me nothing but holding some data back. And this error is fixable. I can show you the fix working because that's what the second run was. Same agent, same seed, same 30 coins. The only change, its scoreboard graded every single generation closed book on data outside the training window, fees included. So overfitting got punished during the search instead of discovered afterwards. And on the sealed test, that's the champion that held up zero point 0.6 against zero point 0.2 for the one that got to grade its own homework. Both sit on very little risk, so read that gap as directional, not as proof. But the direction is the point. The fade isn't a law of nature. Make the number survive unseen data before you reward it, and the search stops chasing ghosts. Now the numbers, straight. Over the 10-month test, the two champions returned plus 0.1 and plus 0.4%. Flat. But be careful how much you read into that, because look at how small this experiment was. One seed strategy, one framework, 30 coins, daily candles, 10 generations, and it found its best version at generation 4, then spent 5 more rounds finding nothing better. That is not an exhausted search. That's a single draw from a space that's effectively infinite. A different seed, a different market, hourly bars instead of daily, 500 generations instead of 10, a completely different objective. I ran one configuration and got flat. That's a data point, not a verdict. And this is the finding I'd carry out of the whole experiment, and it goes well past trading. When the search is basically free, when a model will write and rewrite 100 versions of your code for the price of a subscription, the search stops being the valuable part. The framework is 100 lines. The model does the work. The one piece nobody can hand you is the judge, the thing that decides which version was genuinely better. Whatever you point one of these at, that's where your expertise goes now. Building the evaluator is the research, and the other half is what you feed it. Look at the diet I gave it: price and volume, daily bars, the same default every one of these tools ships with. 30 coins worth of candles is the most picked over dataset in finance. There was never much left in there for anyone, human or machine. The mechanism, though, is real, and it's yours for a subscription. That did not exist a year ago. Pointed at data these tools don't touch: on-chain flows, funding rates, liquidation cascades, with an honest judge around it, and you're somewhere nobody has searched yet. That frontier is wide open, and that's where this series goes next. So if you take one thing into tomorrow, when you run one of these self-improving tools, the only number worth trusting is the closed book one, measured on data the agent never trained on, with real fees. Everything else is the machine grading its own homework. Build that split first before you build anything clever, and then go beat my run. I mean that. The full harness, the seed, both scoreboards, every champion it evolved. It's all in the repo linked in the description, and it costs a subscription to run, not an API budget. So clone it and change one thing. A different seed strategy, a different market, hourly bars, 100 generations, a different objective. Then tell me in the comments what came back and give me your closed book number, because that's the one I'll believe. If someone finds a setup that holds up on data it never saw, that's the next video, and I'll build it out with you. I genuinely don't know what's in there. That's the fun part. The tools are real, they're cheap, and the search space is barely scratched. Subscribe if you want more of these.